Yeah, he served. Yeah, he served into his 90s as a senator. The only other senator, who's the senator in second place for longevity in the Senate? From Massachusetts, Edward Kennedy. Okay, John Kennedy's brother. But J. Strom Thurmond was the States Rights Party candidate in 1948. He will go on to serve in the Senate for longer than any man in American history.
And then he switched parties.
Yes, he did. Now, that wasn't the end of the split. Do you remember, and you probably don't because it was back a ways, but Henry A. Wallace was the vice president during Roosevelt's third term. And he splits off, he and his supporters, and they form the Progressive Party. So you're going to have the States' Rights Party, the Progressive Party, and the regular Democratic Party all kind of running against each other in this election of 1948, which gives the advantage, no doubt, to the Republicans, without question. Another reason they thought they were confident in victory. And we'll talk about that in a bit. Okay? So, President Truman is going to be eventually nominated for re-election. But nobody in the Democratic Party thought he could win. Why? Economy's bad, post-war problems, Republican-controlled Congress, and the fact that the Democratic Party is split now into 3 separate candidates. This doesn't work. Now, do you remember what happened in the Matt Kavanaugh committee vote the other day? Democrats voted, Republicans voted, and what did the Democrats do? They got up and walked out. Well, in this convention, a senator from Minnesota by the name of Hubert H. Humphrey, who we'll talk a bunch about later, he decides he's going to give a speech at the Democratic National Convention. Minnesota Senator Hubert H. Humphrey is going to give a speech. And what he does in his speech is he states how important it is that civil rights be part of the Democratic Party platform in this election, which means you would be something you would support. So Hubert H. Humphrey from Minnesota stands up in front of the delegation during this process, and he says, we have got to make civil rights a priority on the Democratic Party platform running forward. And what does the platform do? It tells what the party's going to do if what? If they win. Well, who'd that make mad? Who got mad about? Oh, the Southern Democrats. So what'd they do? Walked out of the convention. So this is a mess. I mean, this whole thing's a mess. Now, even though Strom Thurmond and Wallace are running, Truman's really the main candidate that'll have to run against Dewey. But the others are going to take votes away from him, are they not? Unless he does something about it, okay, on the campaign. He's going to have to do something about it on the campaign. Now, we'll tell you what route each of them took during the campaign. What Dewey did and what Truman did. Now, I hate to always make a sports analogy, but you might understand this. You kids are in sports. You ever got ahead of somebody maybe you weren't supposed to beat? And all of a sudden, instead of playing to win, you play to keep from losing. Okay? And that's kind of what Dewey did here. Now, just let me explain this to you. One of the criticisms he got and why he lost to Roosevelt in '44 is he was very critical of Roosevelt and very outspoken and criticized him and said not very nice things about him. Well, that wasn't the guy to say not nice things about because he was popular, right? And so his handlers, Dewey's handlers or aides, said, listen, you can't take that kind of attack philosophy here against Truman because you got a bad rap for doing that against Roosevelt. So knowing that he probably was going to win because he had a big lead, right? What Dewey does is he doesn't play to win, he plays to keep from losing. And he goes out of his own shell and he stays really conservative and he stays really consistent and he really just stand-patism and he didn't want to do anything to upset the apple cart or give anybody any reason to think different of him than he was going to win. So he plays really conservative, close to the chest. The speeches he gives are the same speech every place he goes. because he doesn't want to say anything that might be controversial because he's got this thing in the bag. Okay? This is what his philosophy is. Now, he was also kind of interesting to perceive himself as not a rear end, so to speak, as he was perceived when he ran against Roosevelt. He had enough money that he had these movies made that portrayed him as the nice family man, and his life was great. And he even, you know how you go to the movie theater, Mackenzie, and you watch previews of what the movies are going to be before your movie? Instead of previews, he would buy time, and these movie theaters would play these movies, kind of campaign movies, showing how wonderful his life was and his wife and children and all this and that, and hoping to maybe appease the American people as he's a nice guy. And he was very conservative and very consistent in his speeches, and his whole thought during the entire campaign is he didn't want to do anything to upset the apple cart. Okay? Truman had to take a much different approach. And you know who he's going to attack? He's not going to attack Dewey. Who's he going to attack? The Republican-controlled Congress. And I'll tell you how he's going to do it. He referred to Congress as a do-nothing Congress. They didn't do anything that I wanted them to do to help post-war problems. They didn't do anything to help with the economy when I asked to pass a law on the economy. They didn't do anything to help the Americans out in this country. They just stood pat and waited for the next Republican president to be elected. And all that time, those 3 years, they did nothing. Who got hurt economically? The American people. So you've got a do-nothing Congress. So if you want to elect Thomas Dewey, this really nice guy, you go right ahead. And you know what you're going to get? I'm not going to criticize Thomas Dewey. You're going to get a do-nothing Congress that will do nothing. Just like they didn't do anything when I was trying to get some laws passed to help this country. And I'll tell you what, this Congress has 11 days between now and Election Day. Let's revisit those laws that I put in to help this American economy, and let's see if they got any guts. Let's see if they'll pass these laws that'll help the American people. Or are they going to prove me right and be a do-nothing Congress? They've got 11 days to get these things passed. Let's get it done. Well, guess what the Republican-controlled Congress does? They prove him right. They do nothing for those 11 days. Nothing. And it starts to turn the tide. This big gap of projected victory for Dewey gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller as the election comes to an end. Okay? The trouble is, even Truman's aides say, God dang it, made a hell of a comeback. We're down 30 and we only got 35 seconds left. We got the ball on our own 5-yard line. Too little, too late. If we just had another minute left in the game, we'd pull this off. If we only had a couple weeks left in the campaign, we're making such progress. But you know what? We gave it the old college try. Truman and his aides went to bed on election eve knowing they were going to lose this election. They had made great strides. They had made great momentum. But they didn't have enough time. So Congress proves Truman correct. They do not pass one piece of legislation in the 11 days that members were back in the session. Truman started to make serious ground on Dewey late in the campaign, but not even his closest advisors thought he could win. They believed they needed 2 more weeks left to make up the ground. Well, election day comes, and the early returns come in from the media, right? And the East is getting their vote for Dewey. And the Chicago Tribune decides they're going to be the first ones out to make the announcement that Thomas Dewey is the new President of the United States. If you take out that little handout I gave you, that picture, they don't wait for the Western returns to come in. They don't wait for the Western returns to come in. And they proudly put on the front page of their paper, Dewey defeats Truman. And send it out early. Get a jump on everybody else. Well, guess what? When the returns came in from the Midwest and West, Truman carries them all, and he gets 303 electoral votes to Dewey's 189. 303 to 189, and is elected president, and the Chicago Tribune has egg on their face. He proudly holds this up the next morning. Dewey defeats Truman. The error in judgment by the media. Now, J. Strom Thurmond actually got 39 electoral votes in this, all from the South. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, deciding not to wait for the late returns in the western part of the United States, the Chicago Tribune makes an infamous error in judgment on election night. The following was published on the front page of their well-known newspaper: Dewey defeats Truman. Truman wins 303 electoral votes to 189. Thurmond gets 39. Wallace and the Progressive Party gets 0. The man that will serve as vice president under Harry S. Truman will be Alvin W. Barkley of Kentucky. He had served successfully both in the House of Representatives and in the Senate during his political career. And Alvin Barkley will be Vice President of the United States under Harry Truman. So what's the only question you have left, kiddos? What was Truman's problem as president? Congress. So always your question's got to be, who won the Congress? Would that be pretty important? Guess who won the Congress in 48? Democrats. So Truman is going to have a Democratic Congress to work with during his term as president. Okay, very good. We will stop there. Here's kind of the plan for tomorrow. I'm going to